churchyard and frolic around with the young folks, like most of the kids
And
did.
wash your feet?
No, we didn't wash the feet. You're not allowed to wash your feet without your member.
And you weren't old enough. At what age could you be a member?
I don't
Or
know.
was there an okay.
I think you had to be grown.
Yeah, if they didn't believe in children joining the church. And Geneva Phillips wanted to take music so badly that Uncle John, what was her?
Aunt Mary and Jack Phillips and told
Yeah, Uncle Jack
Phillips.
went ahead and bought her a piano. And I can vaguely remember about the discussion of, they were considering the board of whatever they had with the Primitive Baptist Church, discussed turning him out of the church because he bought a piano. Do you remember anything about that?
No, I wasn't that old.
Well, I remember it vaguely, but you know, when you remember things as a child, you don't remember them accurately. But she went on and took music and taught music.
Good.
Well, now, who did Aunt Seal take her music lessons from? Because I know she was...
We walked to Jacksonville, but I can't remember who we took music from.
Oh.
Now I can't read a note. Lucille could play piano. Did you play piano?
Just a little bit. I hadn't played in years.
Well,
She wasn't very musically inclined.
do what?
She wasn't very musically inclined.
No, well, she got her finger caught in the sausage grinder. You remember about that?
Talking about Aunt Lucille.
Aunt Lucille.
Maybe he wasn't born yet. What age was she?
Well, we weren't very old. But you know, you remember those old sausage grinders that they ground up the meat?
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, she got her finger too far in it and crushed the end of the finger. And she didn't take any more music lessons after that. You'd ever heard her tell that story?
I might have. I don't know.
Well, if you had known to look at it, it was pretty flat, that middle finger. And she caught it in the
Sausage grinder.
Sausage grinder.
I bet that hurt.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, that makes me just...
I've got my grandma and grandpa's grinder, and my brother has the old table. It's still got the marks on it where they put it on there, and then they cut up meat on the table.
Well, let's fasten that one to the, what we call the, well, there's the great big old board that you cut the meat off on.
Like a cutting board or
It
something?
was a regular.
What it was on?
Where they separated the instruments and stuff like that, cut up the Lord on it. It's called a Lord table already.
It was a great old big thing. And I don't...
Find that wine.
Yeah.
Wood block or something, Neil, that they call those?
No,
It was on legs. 2x4s. No, not 2x4s, those...
horse faces.
Uh-huh.
Saw horses.
Saw horse, yeah.
Like that saw lumber on.
Wonder what way with all that stuff.
Huh?
Wonder what way with all that stuff.
Well, as long as Papa lived, it stayed up overhead in the wash house. I mean, out in the wash house.
Well, I knew that's where they stored it.
Yeah. I don't know what went with it.
Huh?
I don't know where it went to.
Well,
Somebody.
I don't think I need it, so...
I know I did.
Another thing I've wondered about is, what was carbide? You know, we had carbide lights for you.
Carbide was some kind of stuff that formed gas. We had a carbide plant. Well, we had two. We had one that stood up in the
end of the wash house.
Yeah, in the separate end of the wash house.
Yeah.
And then when we got the new one, it buried in the ground. It would hold a whole can of carbide.
I didn't remember much about that new one. I guess what I didn't see, I didn't remember.
Being in the ground, you wouldn't know anything about it, would you?
Oh, mercy.
If they had it buried in the ground, you wouldn't have really
But I knew where the
Well,
one
it
that
stuck
was,
up about that far above the ground. But you had to fill it up with water and then put the carbide in a thing that set in a tray kind of thing that went down in the water and it disposed in the water and formed the gas to go in the house to make the lights and to cook with it.
and we could iron with that, couldn't we?
Huh?
We could iron with that, couldn't we? Didn't have one of those flexible things that we could iron.
I don't think so. We had a little two-burner carbide stove sitting on the end of the, next to the sink in the kitchen.
Well, that's where it was. I
And
guess.
of course, they had carbide lights all over the house.
Yeah. And it Papa had it wired for electricity when he built it.
Yeah.
But they didn't have any electricity out there at that time, right?
Didn't have electricity out there.
Did they have it in town?
Few houses in town had it, but there's not many houses in town that had electricity back then.
So he really was innovative in his way, because he was thinking ahead, knowing that one day electricity would come and that he could connect up.
Of course, back then, they run two wires instead of having it all in one thing. Run two wires and go through knobs, insulated knobs. They would tack these floor joists or ceiling joists or whatever you put it.
Now, where did all that stuff that was in the attic go to when they broke up?
I imagine it was thrown away.
There was trucks, big old trucks, and all kinds of things in that attic.
Like toys, and you're talking about toy trucks or something, is that what you're talking
They
about?
were
Trunks.
Trunks.
Oh, trunks. Oh, trunks. Oh,
Trunks,
trunks.
suitcases, and not like mine.
Anything that you didn't use regularly.
You put it in the attic.
Huh?
You put it in the attic.
It had
How
to
how'd you get to the attic?
went through our bedroom.
Okay,
There was
which
a
bedroom?
door.
The front
Your
bedroom?
bedroom's in the
Or
front.
the back? Where was yours? Was it in the back?
The one, the
At
back
that
one
corner?
the back one on the left.
Okay. Yeah.
Big boy
And the
on the-
boys was on the right back.
Yeah, that was, we called it the dormitory.
Because there's so many beds in it.
Well, yeah, they had
3 beds.
3 beds.
I thought you told me you called that the bull room.
Bullpen.
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 That's what they always call it, bullpen.
I didn't know that was bullpen.
What was about the front bedroom? Was that just a guest bedroom?
That was the, yes,
Okay.
they had, now this is something that's sort of funny to talk about, but, in the dresser, that, Lane has got now, Sophie gave it to Lane. They had a drawer that they had kept these sheets and pillowcases that they lay out to dead people. You know, the dead people stayed in the home
Yeah.
until they were buried. And I've always thought that part of that was because Papa let the colored people and everybody come in, and they'd come in to view. And most people disapproved of that, to view the body. You remember that? Yeah, don't remember? Well, I did.
In the front parlor?
Yeah, in the front parlor. I remember it vaguely.
Give the road line.
I will.
But
Just a few years.
we were not allowed to touch that linen. It was washed and ironed and
Ready to go, huh?
Yeah, ready to go.
Nice fault.
I remember making granddaddy Billy's and my grandma's and them's coffins out there under the shed.
Yeah.
I had a pile of lumber out there that they made coffins out of that they wouldn't let you touch for nothing else. Out there in the shed.
How did they fix the insides of coffins then?
They lined it with cotton and put lining over top of that, white something.
Well, I wondered about that. I couldn't remember, but I knew that they were. Well,
they come up with a thing and had a pin that right at his shoulders, make it wide enough for your shoulders would go down, and down at your feet it weren't about that wide.
So it was shaped, yeah.
Shape.
Yeah.
So like a body.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, you knew that when I was at Duke Hospital, that Herbert, wasn't that his name? Uncle John,
Herbert Amen?
yeah, Herbert Lee, that took his hearse up there to bring, they told Papa that I could go home if he'd go by ambulance. And Herbert told Papa, there's no use of paying for an ambulance.
Oh, no.
And I've had my ride in the hearse.
You've already picked you up in a hearse at Duke, huh? Oh, that's hilarious.
Well, I remember when the Joneses and all used the hearse for the ambulance.
Well,
You'd go out and pick up patients in a wreck or something other with the hearse.
well, I didn't remember that, but I knew that I wasn't.
That you rode in
Papa
one.
said sometime if he didn't get me out of Duke Hospital, he'd own it. But Herbert took his,
I didn't know that. And I rode up, I remember that. When he was in Duke Hospital.
and that was some deal. I started spitting that blood while I was still on duty, and I was so determined that I wasn't going to wind up in the sanatorium or something. I made my roommate promised not to tell anybody. I was on day duty, and she was on night duty. So I came onto the room, and of course I had to tell her about it. And I made her promise not to tell anybody. But I went on to sleep. And the blood drooled out my mouth. And when I woke up, the superintendent of nurses was in there giving me a shot. When I woke up the next time, Lucille and Papa were standing by my bed. But you know, we never did know what caused that hemorrhage. When I was pregnant, of course, you have to tell everything to the doctors. He was an old doctor, but he was interested in everything. And he said he'd just like to take that before the board of the Alabama Medical Association. And he took my case before the Alabama Medical Association.
Wow.
And they said that they thought I had migraine heart, and that the time in bed that I spent after I got home, of course I already had that outside porch screened in, so that's all I had to do, put a bed out there. But I've never heard of a migraine heart before or since, and I've asked people about it. I don't know what kind of shape
We got to
it's
get in and check in and all that, so we
Yeah.
don't have to go to
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, we got plenty of time. But we just
Yeah,
need
well,
one.
yeah, well, I know you do.